Welcome to Fix Your Belief Systems, the podcast where we dive deep into the belief systems that shape our lives and hold us back from achieving our dreams. I'm your host, Dr. Greg Pursley, also known as Dr. G. And in each episode, we explore powerful conversations with successful individuals in business, money, relationships, health, and personal growth, which as you know, listening to me, it's all about beliefs and faith. Join us as we unpack their journeys, challenge limiting beliefs, and discover practical insights to help you build your dream life on your terms. It is time to fix your belief systems and unlock your full potential. Today, we've got Dr. Paul Reed. He is a faith-based entrepreneur, speaker, author, coach, husband, and father. Many have called him a serial entrepreneur, but Dr. Paul likes to refer to it as serving something bigger than himself. He has opened and scaled 8 businesses, generating revenues more than $6 million annually. Dr. Paul Reed, thank you for being on the podcast.
Oh, man, thanks for the intro. Thanks for having me on. Stoked to be able to serve your community and help them play bigger and fix their BS, right?
That's right, man. Well, hey, belief systems is one of those things that I think so many people, they don't really practice it. We practice skills to make money, or they want tangible things. But what you believe, what you think is obviously a major part of success. So why don't you give our audience a little bit of history? Obviously, we know you're extremely successful, lots of businesses, serial entrepreneur. But what about before? Because there's a lot of people listening to the podcast that are like, man, I'm not there. You're at step 10. I'm at step 1. So give me a little history about you.
Man, so I'm just a kid that grew up in the Pacific Northwest. Dad was a teacher, mom was a dental assistant. Had my first experience. We're both in the health profession in the chiropractic community when I was 8th grade, 13, and it lit a fire in me. And man, honestly, I've come to learn through my sports career, playing high level athletic, through college, whatnot, that is 90% mental. Right. I played with guys that you thought that guy is the guy. He has all the skills, all the athletic ability. He is going to go to the league. And this guy over here, man, he just shows up every day and does work. Right. And so that guy that he committed mentally to do the work and to show up. And a lot of times, more often than not, the guy that less skills, less ability, but more willpower that he had trained through his mindset, right? Through his belief systems, that he believed in himself, that he would create the opportunities for himself, that he would create the person he wanted to be, succeeded at a higher level than those that we naturally would look at and say, that's the most gifted dude on the field. He's going to destroy people. So I learned, through personal experience at a young age, competing in sports, that like it is mostly mental. And I would say, I was blessed. I was one of those dudes. Like I was athletic and a little bit bigger, but as my career expanded, and through some challenges, had a knee injury, worried about not getting a scholarship, got to college, had some more injuries, and just the adversity to fight through and just make a decision, right? Life is about our opportunities and decisions, and make a mental decision to like not accept average and push through for better.
I heard an interview not that long ago, and I think it was a basketball coach, but they allowed a child reporter, relatively young, probably 7th, 8th grade. And the child reporter asked the head coach of a major, I think it was a major D1 college for basketball. But anyway, the kid asked the coach, is it more important to have the attitude or the skills? And the coach, number one, said, well, thank you for asking that question. That's a really amazing question. And the coach said, it's attitude. Attitude is more important than the skills. Somebody that doesn't give up and works hard and has that grit and that tenacity and the never give up attitude is going to outperform long-term someone that just has the skills. Because if you have the skills and you give up, then the skills don't mean anything. And I totally agree with that.
Yeah, I had a coach mentor of mine share one time with me that your attitude is a direct reflection of your aptitude. So if we can fix our attitude, our aptitude in life is going to be that much higher. And ironically, if you number the letters of the alphabet, A1, B2, all the way up through the end of the alphabet, and you put the word, you do that for the word attitude. I don't know if you've done this before, it equals 100, right? Mm-hmm. So our attitude is 100, literally, it's crazy. So our attitude is literally 100% of all things And again, that starts with choices. We have a choice every single day as an opportunity to get up and choose, right? Is it going to go the right way? 100% not. Like life, I like to say life is going to happen, right? Like the dog's going to pee on the floor or something, like you spill your milk, whatever. Like life is going to happen, but it's the attitude you choose to those things that happen to us that determine our outcome on the other side of it.
I totally agree. In fact, I was talking with one of my coaching clients the other day, my consulting clients really, but and we were talking about the a lot of people will say you just need to be happy, you just need to have a positive attitude, a positive outlook. And he was talking about his coach in his sporting in the sporting world, talking about that. And I said, I don't really agree with that 100%, because there's going to be moments where a positive attitude doesn't really make sense. But what you want is you want to be able to look at it from a different perspective. So I think personally, perspective is more important than a positive attitude. So if I can take a situation and I can look at it from multiple perspectives, it gives me a better full understanding of the way it could be viewed in a lot of different ways. And then I get to choose which perspective I would like to take on that situation. What do you think about that?
100%. And to your key word right there, we get to choose, right? I think that's one of the biggest opportunities God bless us with is every day we get to wake up and choose, right? Like we get to choose whether we do good things or bad things. And so you're looking, a perspective is way more important. Again, you can put on I think those that you're referencing or mentioning there, like, even though they put on a happy attitude or smiley face, internally there is incongruence, right? Even though they're quote unquote pretending to be happy in whatever experience or circumstance they're in, if you're truly not, because you haven't embraced whatever that thing is, to change your perspective and look at it through a different set of lenses, like you said, is super important. And so we can, I'm a fan of action until you make it, but faking it, like putting on that smiley attitude when you're really not, you got to find out why you're not. Again, perspective, change the environment, change the situation to help you derive the outcome you want to create that happiness. And that's a whole different ball of wax.
Yeah, that's interesting. So how do you gain that insight or that skill set in a professional career, whether it be sports or in a business, if you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, or if you have a career in some industry that you work for a company? I mean, how do you develop that resilience and that perspective where you don't react to situations, you become very proactive, and you give yourself that time when a situation occurs, that time to contemplate how you're going to respond? Is there a way that you would recommend that people could develop that?
Yeah, I think it's a couple fold, like three things that I do. One is constantly working on yourself. So I'm a huge fan. Again, maybe it's because I'm an athlete, but I found that your physical discipline builds your mental, all other disciplines really, but your mental fortitude. Like if you're physically attacking your body every day, it's building mental fortitude. And so that mental strength first is going to help you, whatever challenge you have, right? You're just going to be a stronger version of yourself, less weak. And then two is again, back to perspective. I teach my docs that I work with, the folks that I work with, like to have the lowest heartbeat in the room. So when you're in a situation, it's not necessarily going the way that you want. Like we want to be reactionary. I think that's just human nature. Like it's our flight or fight. And if you haven't trained yourself to take a step back, to take a deep breath, evaluate the situation from different perspectives, just like you mentioned a few minutes ago, and then address it. If we're super reactionary, then we more often than not say and do things that, and on the other side of it, we might not necessarily have said or done. And then the other thing is, I learned this as a coach when I was coaching my kids as youth sports, is I asked my parents to give me 24 hours. Like if the game did not go the way you want, your kid didn't get the ball as much as they wanted, give me 24 hours before you email. I want you to sit on it and process it before you fire off an email. So those are really three things. One, it's working on yourself. Two, develop the lowest when you're in an animated, conflicting environment situation, lower your heart rate. It's going to help you make better decisions. And then always a 24-hour rule. Like give yourself 24 hours to process, because it's probably not as bad as you really think it is. You're just
Mm.
you're in the heat of the moment. You're excited. You're fired up. Whatever you want to say. And we tend to overact in that manner. So those are like three things I do.
It's so true. I think there's, everybody can relate to that. When you're in an emotional state, we always say high emotion equals low intelligence.
Yeah,
When
right.
you're in a high emotional state, whether it's euphoria or anger, you're pissed off, you're going to say some things you really don't mean. If you're in a euphoric state, you might say some things you don't mean. When you're back into that middle state where you're just content, where you have time to get clear, to have, that moment, so important. And that, it's a skill you have to develop. And
100%.
I think it never ends. I think you should consistently work towards becoming better. And it's funny because in the moment, a lot of times, I don't know if you've noticed this, but in the moment, you don't feel like you're growing, expanding, and moving past your peers or becoming better. But when you look back,
Yeah.
3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years down the line, all of a sudden you're like, wow, I'm up here and everybody else is down here. Like, what
Yeah.
happened? I'm not reactive and everybody else is freaking out. I'm doing all these positive things. Everybody else is still doing all these negative things. What happened? You constantly made little changes day in and day out, over time.
And
Um,
that's, I would say the same thing with business, right? Like personally, and then with our businesses, you're growing and scaling multiple businesses or whatever you have going on, running a business for somebody. It's the exact same principles apply. Like getting up, doing the work, reflecting on, I call it after action review and return and report, like your double A, double R. Like after you've done something, analyze how it went and then pivot and make adjustments based on the outcomes. And I see too many people, professionals especially, definition of insanity. They don't, for one, don't make the time to analyze their KPIs,
mm,
and then they continue to do the definition of insanity, the same thing over and over again without getting a different result, and not prioritizing. It's so important. I'm teaching on that tonight. Not prioritizing managing a business like a business. The only reason I was able to scale and do multiple business, stimulating from one, I had my primary thing that I had established and set it on autopilot, which allowed me to do multiple things. They don't make the time to prioritize managing the business. They just show up and have a quote unquote job just over broke, and they're in a state of constant distress, and
mm.
which creates fatigue and breakdown and irritation and all those things.
Go back over that double A, double R, because I totally agree with that. That everything we do, we call it thinking and then you do. So
Mm-hmm.
you take action and then you think about what you did, make a plan, and then take action and then think about it, and back and forth. But you said double A, double R. Go over that
Yeah,
for me.
yeah. So essentially, the same principle. I just call it after action, return and report. So like looking at what you did this. And I learned that from the CrossFit space when I was competing in CrossFit. Like, okay, so I had these 4 movements that I had to do of this workout, and so I need to assess: how was my transitions? How are my movement patterns? What the outcome? Is there a way I can shorten some time frame? Then I applied that to my business space. Like hey, I did this marketing event. Like
Mm.
it rocked, right? Well, how much did I spend? Let's really evaluate. Like, did it really rock? How much did we spend on it? What was our cost per acquisition? How many people, started into care? And then like, hey, it worked great. Now I'm going to pour some more fuel on that thing. Or you know what? It was terrible. Like I'm going to pull back and not do that again. And I see business owners, unfortunately, like they don't make time to manage their business, be the CEO, to really think, right? I encourage all the people I work with, like, make time in your schedule weekly to think. That's where you're going to get your downloads. It's going to allow you, again, like you said, be in a non-emotional environment. So I make better decisions. And then it's going to allow you to course correct when needed to grow
Yeah,
personally and professionally. So
I totally agree with that. If you don't look back, if you don't measure it, if you don't have data, then you really don't know. You're just
yeah,
reactive,
right.
reacting to your emotions.
Yeah.
Oh, it was a really busy event. Okay, well, what kind of clientele did you actually get? How many leads did you get? How long or how many of those leads converted? What was
Yeah.
the conversion percentage, and what was the conversion value? So
Yeah.
if you don't ask those questions, then you just think, oh, that was a great event. Let's do it bigger next time. Well,
Yeah.
how would you do it bigger? Like if it was a good event, like we do that. We do a post event report, the
Yep.
PER,
Yeah.
and that's what we ask. We ask a ton of questions. So we go, do we want to do it again next year? And if we do, what can we do better? And I think that's so hard for most people because at least in my consulting career and my consulting groups, people typically, I have found, are scared to ask the hard questions because they're scared of the answers. They
Hmm.
just want to live in this la la land where it's all glitter and puppies and rainbows and ice cream. And I'm like, you got to know.
Yeah.
I always say, and tell me if you agree with this or if you have a different word, but I always say the two most important words in business are data and cash flow. That's
Yeah.
that's my version or my
Yeah.
phrase. Would you agree? Would you add anything to that?
100% data, 100%. And I think, especially in the space that you and I are in professionally, we like to sell ourselves our own story. Like, I can't tell you how many I've talked to. I'm like, dude, stats tell, stories sell. Like, you're selling yourself on a story that ain't real, man. Like, like, yes, you might have cash in the bank, but you're not taking any home because it's all going to your overhead and your expenses because you don't know what your margins are. So, like, let's have a real conversation. And to your point, it's uncomfortable as especially as somebody that has taken the time to become a professional, to open their own business, to acknowledge there is a weakness, right? Because we've accomplished and done a lot of things. And so it's having that willingness to never accept average and always looking at yourself. I would say, if you ask me the one thing that has propelled me, I would say it's that, like, I am always teachable. I am always looking in the mirror and finding a way to do something better. And if you know it better than me, then help me, please, because I want to go to the next level. And I think too many folks just get comfortable, and we know that complacency kills. And so they sit there and they sell themselves on the story. I have people coming in, there's money in the bank, I'm making $1, but I'm not moving towards abundance and freedom and all those things. And so, yeah, definitely stories. We sell ourselves on too many stories and not analyzing our data and our stats, but you're 100% right.
I love that. So true. I think that, being obviously a faith-based entrepreneur, like you say, in that Christian space, I mean, in the Bible, that's what it talks about. And when it talks about act as a child, or think like a child, what it's saying is stay curious and
Yeah.
stay open and stay honest and just, it's fine. Just tell me the reality. Like, is it,
Right.
what is it? Like, it's okay. I just want to know so we can get better. I had one time where a high level individual that was working for me messed up this email ascension system basically, and basically the third email had the wrong link, which then when people clicked it, it took them to the wrong spot and confused them and cost us a lot of sales, and people were confused and cost our customer service and all of this. I mean, it caused chaos.
Yeah, right.
And so, when this happened, it launched, and then on Monday she's like, I asked to see her, and she's like, well, I guess you want me to go ahead and pack my stuff up. And I'm like, no, why would I want you to? You're a great person. What are you talking about? You've done great. You made a mistake. Let's
Yeah.
analyze. Let's figure out why it happened. And she was like, what? Oh, okay. But, I think as a leader, coming down on people is not the way to go. It's looking at it and going, if you're the right person in the right seat, you get it, you want it, you're aligned with the company, it's okay to make mistakes as long as we learn from them and don't make them into the future.
Yeah.
What's your philosophy there as far as working with employees and also with your consulting clients too?
Yeah.
How do you teach that? How do you get somebody as a leader to do that?
Yeah, I would tell you that was probably the most, as you know, as a business owner, like, team members are probably the most challenging piece of business. Finding, again, back to you said, alignment, congruency, work ethic, all of those things. But I think what my wife and I had found with our chiro clinics, we had 30 some employees. We have a coffee shop that had 10 or 12. So we'd have anywhere from 40 to 50 people that we were overseeing at any one time. Is really treating them how you would want to be treated. Like, you and I make mistakes too. So when I screwed up, I had again with my sports career, I had multiple different coaches at a high level, and I had one that would, like, meet you in the field, punch you in the face, say you screwed up, right? And you have one like, yo, like, sit you down, like, did you see what you did? Yeah, I know, coach, I'm sorry. Like, okay, what do you got to do next time?
Mm.
And so I think really just analyzing, again, as owners and drivers, we have a different skill set, different drive, different will than a quote unquote employee would, but it's really trying to put yourself in their seat and how would they want to be trained, communicated to, led, and then doing the best to equip yourself to lead them in that manner. And again, it's an ongoing process, right? I was way different with my very first employee than 15 years into my career when we had 30 something or 50. Like, it's like you become But again, the quote unquote, I like to say, embrace the suck. Like where's your weakness? I was not a good communicator, especially, in our space, it was primarily female employees. And so I had to learn a lot, and it was based sometimes through trial and error. Like I get them crying on you, Dr. Paul, in tears, and like, what did I say? It wasn't what you said, it's how you said it, knucklehead. So learn how to change your tone, change your body language, change your, I'm a big dude, 6'3", 230 pounds. So if I'm like, like coming at them with my football mentality versus like, all right, back to the lowest heartbeat in the room. What happened here? How can we address this? How can we do better next time? And then I think too, with employees, I see a big complication or problem is the leader hasn't outlined clearly with transparency expectations. And so I like to say unspoken expectations or premeditated disappointment. So if you haven't outlined exactly everything you want that person to do, from the most micro thing to the macro things, like then you can't, if they goof up like that's on you because you didn't explain everything that you want them to do. And so unless you've done a really good job explaining roles, responsibilities, expectation, timelines, all of those things, then you can't expect them to be perfect by any manner. So.
That brings me to learning. I love that quote, by the way. I've heard that multiple times where, if you're not explaining something to somebody, you're actually preparing yourself for failure into the future. And it's so true, because if you just assume they're going to know what to do and how to do it the way you would want it done, then the assumptions are just going to turn into, these problems, this resistance. Resistance. Yeah. Right. But I learned this, and they called it the 4 Ps. And it was, first you promote, promote what you do, how you do it, who you do it to, where you do it, all that. You promote, you talk about what you do, where, when, the problem you solve. The second thing is you profit. That promotion is going to bring people to you. They're going to buy. And then the third thing, which is what people skip and what you're really talking about, is process, where you write down what worked and you write down what didn't work. So that way you can do more of what did work and teach other people. And the 4th P is people. That's when you add people. If you skip the process portion and just add people and expect them to do it the same way as you got the results in the first place, it's never going to work. In fact, that's why most businesses in America end up having less than 12 employees, because it's when you're key person dependent, all of a sudden you can only handle so many people, and it starts to become so chaotic that you can't grow and scale. So what is your process there, or how did you learn that, I guess? Because when I first started, I didn't know that. And when I hired people, I thought they would just do what I wanted them to do and it would just work out.
Yeah. Some of it was through my coaches, my mentors, my leaders that I had throughout early in my career. A lot of it was trial and error. Doing it the wrong way, getting
school of hard knocks, the school.
Oh, 100%. A lot of what I've done was school hard knocks again. But yeah, so you're 1000% right. Again, I see a lot of professionals want to scale, do multiple businesses, quote unquote, create freedom, financial freedom and time freedom for themselves, but they haven't established any systems or process at all. And so they're operating, like you said, in a state of constant chaos, and they can't scale and expand. I don't care if you have one office with 3 employees, you need a system and process. You need to know who's opening the mail, who's doing the deposits, who's like all the stuff. Like I literally helped the doc the other day. I'm like, dude, like who opens your mail? Like you have multiple offices. Who's responsible for who? How do you know embezzlement isn't happening? He's like, what? Like, no, man, like you need to know all these things. Like you can't, like if you truly want to not be in a constant state of stress, trying to memory manage all of the things that are happening, you need to create those systems and process with reportables and who's reporting it and how often and when and to whom and all those things. And so, yeah, man, I would say that, again, through mentors, some of it the hard way, we were forced to establish, and some of it came like, hey, when we did our second business after our first, again, like forced, threw ourselves in the deep end. All right, I got to figure this out. And then finding a way and then just trying to make it, again, through stress and chaos, like, oh, this isn't fun. Like, this isn't sustainable. I remember when I was doing, because I'm 27 plus years in, it wasn't cool to do multiples at the time with clinics, and everybody's like, you're nuts. You're managing too many people. The stress of trying to manage one doctor, let alone 5 doctors. And I'm like, well, you haven't done the hard work first, right? The heavy lift up front. to make it easy on yourself. And
It
so
just
that's
sounds like somebody that's either never done it or doesn't have that vision. Somebody that's just
100%. Yeah.
yeah. I tell that to people a lot, and that really hits on that right on the nail on the head. Where people, when they tell you you can't do something, they're just telling you what they
They
feel
can't.
they could do or couldn't do. They're just telling you their perspective about themselves.
Yeah.
So I really don't listen to people unless they've done more or accomplished more than what I have.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only time, because the only time I have ever found someone that has accomplished more than I have accomplished that would not give me advice or would talk down to me or down
Yeah.
at me is if I was going to be affecting their business in a negative way.
Yeah.
Every other time, person that has done more than me will lift me up, will give me advice, will educate, will do all sorts of great things. And almost every time, somebody that hasn't done anything is just projects their fears on you. And I
Yeah.
don't.
It's funny. I just made a post this morning that I read it earlier, so I shared it. But your circle is your ceiling.
Mm.
Like those that are around you are literally, because exactly what you said. Like, and I was one of my first coaches taught me, like, protect your mind. Like, so many of your friends, your parents, your grandparents, colleagues, like, they're not gonna, like, they don't have the vision and the purpose and mission that you do. Like, be careful who you're sharing that with, because of that exact thing. Like, most of them can't see it, they haven't felt it, they don't have the desire, and they're going to tell you that you can't.
And yet, when you do accomplish it, and those are the same people that go, "Oh, I knew you could do it." It's funny how that works.
Crazy story. So my quote unquote chiropractic mentor. So I did my 12th quarter with him, finish up my preceptorship. And I said, all right, man, I'm not going to, he wanted me to stay and work for him. And I'm like, we feel led to go do our own thing. And literally shakes my hand and says, good luck. You're not going to pass your boards and you're going to fail. That's what this dude that had been taking care of me for like 15 years of my life said. I was like, are you kidding me, ref? All right, I'll show you. So then I opened up 5 offices around his one. I'm like, all right, let's go, Bubba. So
it's funny though, because that kind of drove you. I was watching this video about Tiger Woods the other day, and I don't remember which professional golfer, but it's literally a recent professional golfer that's been done well over the last few years. Maybe it was like Finau or something like that. But anyway, he said, like, he became a professional golfer and he got to play with Tiger, and he was like, I was 12 and I waited for you, and you walked by and you didn't sign my whatever,
my
hat. And Tiger's response was, good. It probably pissed you off, which is why you're here. And the guy stood there and he was like, yeah, you're right. You're right. It pissed me off, and that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
Same thing with, I realized that about my upbringing. My dad was so hard on me, man. And I'm not the only one. There's so many people that say that same thing. My dad was so hard on me. Well, he was hard on me because he was making me the best version of me I could be. He was basically my coach. And if he was taking it soft, I would have turned out soft. So I'm appreciative of it now instead of mad about it. Which is something I talk about a lot, is that's that perspective again. You relook at stuff and you go, I wonder, was he just trying to be a jerk, or was he actually trying to, teach me something? So any stories like that growing up? Because you seem so like, you're such a go-getter, like I'm going to succeed. Like, there is no failure. Like, I'm going to keep going. So is there any stories growing up that you remember that you're like, I turned into that because of this, or is it just
too many? Too many. How long do we have, Greg? No, dude. I mean, I think that's and that's probably not all my success, but a piece of my success is using those stories, like that mentor that spoke negativity to me and gave me like, all right, I'll show you, dude. Same thing with my sports career. I was told by after I didn't play, my senior year, because I blew my ACL in high school. They were like, oh, you're done. You're washed up. Why are you even, why are you going to go try and play in the Pac-10 at the time? I'm like, because I'm going to play and I'm going to get a scholarship and I'll show you. Right. And so, so that I had, went from being back then, it was I can't remember the star level they gave you, but recruited by most of the schools throughout the country, Notre Dame, USC, like all the big schools, watched like all the Pac-12 schools, except for one of the Arizona schools, and then blow your ACL, having coaches from those schools call you in the hospital, say, hey, sorry, kid, best of luck. Like, we're not going to go, we're not going to risk, after you tore your ACL. To one school, Washington State, hanging with me, like, we're going to honor our word. We think you can recover and do a good job for us. And so that gave me, I can remember literally sitting in the stands, watching practice, crying and praying with my pastor at the time, like, what is going on here? My life is, my parents couldn't have paid for school. Of course. My dad, a teacher. I was like, what am I going to do? Like, and then just like that moment, like, nope, I'm not going to accept this. I'm still going to get my ride, and I'm going to go through school, become a chiropractor, do the things that I want to do. And so that was, but hindsight, I think where a lot of people is they look back and they still looked at themselves as victims instead of like looking back at those, whatever the circumstance was, most of them negative, and learning like, okay, what from that is in my life now because of that, and because of that incident. And I have some of the best friends that I wouldn't have had I, gotten the scholarship to whatever, go to the East Coast, outside of staying in the state of Washington. I probably wouldn't be married to my bride today. Like, we went to high school together, she went to a different college, but then transferred, we got married. If I had been across the country, who knows if any of that would have happened. So like we need to learn to look at those situations and see who we've become today because of those. And so I
have a process you might like. I wrote it in my book, Fix Your Belief Systems, but it's called, and I've done keynotes on this process, but I call it RIP, which most people would be like, oh, that's rest in peace. And I go, well, I look at it differently. I look at it as, if you want to become someone else, if you want to become better, you have to become a new person. And the old person has to die. You have to shed the old skin in order to become the new person. The things that used to be exciting to you really aren't exciting anymore. Like, I have guys that used to be buddies that still to this day, hey man, you want to go hang out at the bar, and you want to watch the game, you want to hang out on Sunday all day. And, and I'm like, no, there's no appeal to that. It doesn't get me excited at all. And it's because I became this new person and I had to shed that old person off. But the RIP process is retrospection is the R. Retrospection is doing exactly what you just said, looking backwards at your life and looking at situations and then getting perspective from those situations, was asking questions about it and creating a new narrative around it. Mm-hmm. Secondly is the I, which is introspection, which is, looking inside of yourself and learning what really drives you, who you are, what excites you, and then doing more of those things, scheduling those things in your life. And I had missed out on that for a long time, both of those things for a decade, because I'd never taken the time to actually think about those. And then P is projection. It's looking forward into your future and saying, what do I want my future to look like? And so who do I need to become to do that, to be that person?
Yeah.
And it's such a great tool if you take time to do it. I think some people have a natural ability to do it. It seems like you kind of do. You just seem like you look back and you're like, I'm going to look at it from a different perspective or positive way. Yeah. But do you have any guidance or tips for people that look back at their life and they are a victim to certain scenarios? Because I really think victimhood is an absolute. It's well, I hate to say the word pandemic. It's an epidemic. It's an epidemic right now in America, for sure. People are just so victimized, which gives you no power. So, any perspective on that?
Man, I think, but it's really having enough will and desire to not be complacent and stuck where you're at. And I think those folks almost are afraid of changing that view or that perspective of that thing, because it might require more responsibility or accountability of themselves. And so they don't want, again, back to not wanting to do the work. Like those things all expose areas that we need improvement. Mm-hmm. And so if you're unwilling to recognize and embrace, like, I need to get better, it's something, it might only be one thing, but usually most of us have multiple things that we can improve on. And if you're unwilling to do that, then you're just going to want to stay in that same exact miserable, making excuses, whatever narrative that you're telling yourself, because you know that if I truly want to go over here, and I think that's the first thing, is they truly don't want it, because again, and back to, because it's like, life is hard, like, learning from those things, and then again, back to embracing the suck and doing the work. It's hard, it's uncomfortable. It's going to
Yeah, but
burn.
right, choose your hard, right? Like
Yeah,
if
100%.
if you are complacent and unhappy in your current situation and
Yeah.
you give up and you just settle for the life you have, but you're unhappy, well, that sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, so but if you go for the life you want, well, that sucks too. But at least at the end, there's a potential for you to have the life you want, as opposed to where you currently are if you don't do anything, right? I
And
mean,
you will have grown regardless. Like you will become
absolutely.
a better person. I think that's too is everybody, and I think social media has done this today, is
Mm.
everybody's so short sighted.
Oh
Like
yeah.
they want it now. And all of us want like, hey, I want the money, I want the success, I want the whatever life now.
I can tell you that was my biggest mistake in my entire career was pushing things too hard or wanting things to happen quicker than they naturally would. So I've been
Yeah.
guilty of that for sure.
Yeah. And then I think what happens is folks they throw in the white flag. Like I give up. Like I didn't achieve it in a week. I'm done. Like, no, like that took, people look at my fitness level. I'm like, I have literally been working out and lifting since like my parents bought me a gym membership when I was 14. I used to ride my bike to the gym. Like what you see at 50, almost 54 started when I was 14. Like it didn't happen overnight. Like my ability to do some of the things I do is because it's trained into myself. And so they're unwilling to play the long game. Like they're unwilling just to show up every day in and day out for weeks, months, and years.
Well,
And so then they,
that becomes who you are, though. Like I
mm,
know you probably lift workout, I should say, maybe 5, 6 times a week. You probably take
yep,
a day off,
yeah,
but it becomes who you are. Like you almost don't feel right if you
I
miss the
don't, yeah,
gym.
yeah, I don't.
Yeah, because I went through ups and downs where I would go on a fad workout stint, a fad diet, a fad whatever. And I hate to say fad. I mean, I would just go into like, well, I'm going to do this thing for 8 weeks or whatever. And the problem with that, like you just said, is very short sighted. It's very nearsighted. It's like, well, I'm going to do this and I'm going to make this change. Well, yeah, but when you stop doing it, the change goes away and you become the old person you were. And you have to self analyze sometimes. Like, am I heading in a direction I like? This happened to me last year. And if you look at my Instagram page, I did a story yesterday from January 1st to April 1st, and you can see the massive change. But it this time, it wasn't, I'm going to do this for a period of time and get fit. It's, this is me now. This is who I am.
Awesome.
I am a fit individual. I go to the gym at least 3 days a week, probably more like 5 or 6, because when you get into it, you enjoy it. You're like, I can't wait to go for my run today. Today's a lift day. All right. Like whatever.
You push heavy stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, right. I mean,
Yeah.
it's literally my wife jokes about it now, but and having a support system, my wife is also doing the
Yeah.
same thing. That really helps. But I'm just saying, I'm calling her like, oh, today's lift day. I'm gonna get home and I'm gonna eat and then we're gonna lift, and she's like, oh, I'm in. Let's go. It's exciting and not like, oh, I have to go to the gym or I have to lift today.
Yeah.
Um, but it's because it's who you become. So, what would you recommend for somebody that's like, okay, I know I want to get in shape, because people generally talk about health or weight,
Yeah.
and they talk about money. I want more money and I want to be in shape. Okay,
Yeah.
great. So if you want something like that, what's the first step? What's the first step?
Action, right? So if somebody like I like really like I haven't worked out in years, weeks, months, or whatever. Like, okay, well, today I want you to get, and I'm a big morning routine person, so I really encourage folks like create a morning routine.
Mhm.
Um, but like, hey, so just today, I want you to get out of bed. I want you to walk to the closet and put on your fitness clothes. And if that's all you accomplish, you don't go to the gym, don't do any movement, then that's fine. But then tomorrow, like, okay, let's maybe do 2 sets of push-ups or something. So it's again, it's back to
Celebrate the
creating the
win, man.
habit.
Small
Yeah,
wins. Small
back to
wins.
creating the habit. Yeah, and so it's and again, don't and I also encourage people. I think where folks fall off the wagon is if they can't quote unquote if they can't meet their own expectation. Like I want to work out for 45 minutes today, but life happened and I have 20, and so I'm just
Mhm.
not going to do it because I didn't have my 45. Like no, go move for 20 minutes, stay in rhythm, stay in habit. Tomorrow you get back to it. But if you take that day off, then tomorrow's a little bit harder, and if life happens again, then you skip 2 days and 3, and then it's just so it's like staying in rhythm, even if it's not quote unquote your perfect ideal workout environment situation. Still do it. Like stay in
I
rhythm,
love
stay in
that.
better.
I
Yeah.
love that, man, because the moment you give up, like I talk a lot about reasons versus excuses.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people use excuses, but they call them reasons. And when you call it a reason, your brain just shuts down. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, well, that's why I can't do that.
Yeah.
And like, if you justify that one day, well, I just, I don't really feel like it today or whatever, that's literally telling your brain it's not that important. And
Yeah.
then
I,
the
I
next
call it reasons and rations. So same thing.
reasons and rations. Yeah, right.
I got to rationalize why I can't do this thing today. And so I don't do it. I'm like,
Yeah,
no,
right. That
knucklehead.
just means you didn't want to do it in the first place. Yeah. What I always tell people is set a goal and then create a plan and then put the plan on the calendar and then act on the calendar. It doesn't matter what you feel like doing, because there's days where I don't feel like lifting. There's
Yeah.
days I don't feel like going for a run. There's days where I'm like, oh man, I got to run 2.5 miles. Oh my gosh. But I do it. And then I celebrate the win that I did it. Like, damn, I'm proud of myself.
Yeah.
Um,
And I would tell you the other thing I see is people don't acknowledge the work that they've done,
mm,
whatever, if it's physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. And so that, in my opinion, from my experience, like when I didn't acknowledge my reward, my wins, because it was like, all right, what's next? Now I just got to put another plan together and drive. And I'm not acknowledging those wins. It's like self-defamation. Like I'm beating myself up internally because I'm not rewarding myself for all the things that I did. So then all the negative stuff starts to happen. And so to your point, acknowledge, like, the end of the week, dude, I crushed 5 workouts this week. That's awesome. Good job. Or I saved, like, back to your, the money principle. People want more money, but they're unwilling to, like, stay consistent in saving, like keep investing in yourself over time. Like, okay, well, this month had a goal of doing X, but I only did 20% of that. That's okay. Do the 20% and then hit your goal next. Like, just keep on keeping on.
it. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I think that's part of choosing your focus, like we talked about in the beginning. It's like, choose are you going to choose to focus on the things you did do and the things that you moved in the right direction? Or are you going to focus on, well, I didn't hit my goals, so it's pointless? Like, one of them gives energy and one of them takes it away.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we are energy. We're energetic
We're
beings.
100%. We are energetic. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I really appreciated, having you on this conversation. We could go on and on and on about
Yeah.
it, because you are so, we're so in tune, we're so aligned.
Yeah.
But any final thoughts that you'd give to people, and that something that just comes from deep down inside from your soul, that you're like, oh, I got to share this one thing or whatever before we head
Yeah.
out.
Man, I would tell them to get clarity. Like, once you have clarity, I like to say that when the vision's clear, the mechanism will appear. But if you don't have clarity, you're shooting at a fuzzy target. So really deciding where you want to go, who you want to be. And then again, it's down to doing the work. Like you said, schedule out that which gets scheduled gets done. Put it on the calendar, commit to the calendar, get up and do the work, and good stuff happens. I mean, that's really
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Dr. Reed. I really appreciate you giving your insights today. Great stories. Really love it. Some really good stuff here too. Make sure everybody listening, make sure you take notes. You're getting these perspectives from people that have been through it. So there's 2 ways to learn. You can either go through it yourself and figure it out, or you can learn from somebody else who's already been through it. It's a lot less painful to learn from somebody else that's already been through it and has these perspectives. But, I really appreciate you being here. And everybody, we're going to share all of Dr. Reed's information down below. You can click on any of his links and, check him out. Really great guy. I found him on Instagram and said, man, I got to get this guy on the podcast. Really appreciate him being here. So thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Fix Your Belief Systems. I hope you've gained valuable insights and inspiration to challenge your own belief systems. If you're ready to take the next step and join the Fix Your BS community, which is dedicated to your personal transformation, check out my coaching group by clicking the link in the description, where we will work together to build your dream life on your terms. Remember, the only thing standing between you and your goals are your beliefs and your actions. So let's fix them. Until next time, keep believing in yourself. And as always, I'm here to help you fix your BS.